It doesn't matter if you grow up in the hood or rough area of town, you can still make the conscious decision to not be a delinquent. Sorry for weird format, I am on mobile. I see this a lot in my city. I live in Regina, Saskatchewan, where kids that my friends are friends with that are in gangs or are doing bad shit, i.e. selling drugs in their high school, beating up other kids for fun, etc. And whenever I ask them, why be friends with them if they do all this bad shit? And they say something along the lines of it's not their fault, or they're just growing up in a rough area, or they have it rough at home. And all of those I can understand, but you don't need to be an asshole if you grow up in a rough area. You don't need to be in a gang if you grow up without a dad or a mom, or you grow up in a rough area. You can make the decision in your mind to not be a useless drug-dealing piece of shit. Edit 1. The kids that my friends are friends with are white. This post isn't a by it race idiots. And no, I don't live in an upper-class family, and no, I don't live in the suburbs. I have a personal anecdote about this. One of my best buddies grew up in a really shitty environment. And when I say really shitty, I mean fucking abominable. They were extremely poor, often having to move from place to place and relying on food stamps to survive. Didn't help that his mother has MS. Oh, and his dad is just a truly evil piece of subhuman garbage. This guy makes the typical alcoholic wife beater look like a fucking joke. I won't provide examples of stuff he did, as my buddy told me that stuff in confidence, but suffice to say, that shit ain't pretty. This buddy of mine has been stabbed multiple times, mugged multiple times, even shot at. Not gonna lie, he's made a lot of bad choices and done a lot of shitty things himself. Again, not gonna list any examples. He did drop out of high school, but got his GED, immediately. Fast forward a couple months, he's taking his bipolar meds regularly, going to therapy, living on his own, does coding projects for fun, and is going to a community college with a full class load. He doesn't have below an 85% in any of his classes. I'm confident that he'll continue getting better, get a degree, and probably become some kind of programmer. Granted, this kid is white and is extremely smart, but still, if he can get out of that environment and better himself, you don't really have an excuse. That's literally what happens all the time. Think about NFL/NBA players. It's not that black and white. Young kids are extremely susceptible to peer pressure, and it's all about feeling like you belong. I'm happy that you didn't succumb to it like many others, but unfortunately, it's not always so simple. It's a case-by-case basis type of thing. A lot of kids growing up in bad areas, which usually means in poverty, usually have absent parents because they're either working 3 jobs to make ends meet or one is absent completely. These children are left unsupervised, and the ones with lower IQs and less cognitive decision-making skills fall victims to gangs or criminal activity, along with a whole lot of other stuff. I'm not saying all, I'm just saying there are a lot that fall under this general example. A lot of children are forced into gangs by other family members. Some try it out because they want to belong, and when they realize it's not what they want, it's too late and can't get out. Many grow up in households where drug use is accepted. Many don't have someone watching out for them, making them go to school. More often than not, you are a product of your environment, and the cycle of crime, addiction, abuse, and violence is passed down through each generation. Some kids are just assholes. Yes, of course, this does not apply to everyone. A lot of people have the ability to decide they don't want to be like everyone else around them, and they are determined to stick to the straight and narrow and make a better life for themselves, but it's not always so easy. To say it's a choice for every kid just isn't fair. I see your point, but I don't think it's totally right either. I do agree that everyone does make the choice of whether or not to become a drug dealer or other sort of shithead, but I don't agree that it doesn't matter where you grew up. 'Cause those circumstances you grow up in don't make the choice for you, but they can make it a lot easier or harder to make the right choice. For example, say you grow up in the suburbs and your parents are doctors, who are both very kind and loving. You're well fed and you've got enough spending money to enjoy yourself. The choice to not be a drug dealer is pretty fucking easy. The only reason you'd choose to do it is either that you find some sort of joy in it, or you're so greedy that you aren't satisfied with all that your parents give you already. But change the scenario to someone living life in the hood with a single mother just struggling to get food on the table. The choice then becomes 20 times harder. It's either follow the law and stay hungry and unable to afford much of anything enjoyable, or deal drugs and get to experience a little luxury for once in your life. Now obviously I'm not saying it's right to deal drugs, it's still wrong. But I'm definitely gonna think a lot worse about the first person than the second, because at least I understand where you're coming from. And if you think about it, if you were in an alternate universe where that drug dealing person from the hood was no more or less moral than before, but was instead the child of those doctors, they probably wouldn't be dealing drugs. The person didn't change, the circumstances did. According to all recent studies, you can't. Or at least, it makes it really harder for you to not be delinquent. The problem is not that poor people are delinquent, everyone is, but most grow out of it soon enough, but it's harder to grow in poor areas. Of course you can make the decision, but the question is, will you? If all the examples of success in your life, all the people with any kind of money or power who are portraying even the illusion of success are succeeding through illicit means, it's not hard to understand why people think this is the only path available to them. People follow the examples they know, parents, family, friends, neighbors. If you have bad examples, you are way more likely to make bad choices for yourself. You want to change these people who are doing bad shit? Show them what a good example is. That's flawed logic. If you grow up in an area with drug dealers and gang members living across from you and next to you and you're forced to interact with them, then of course that becomes your normal. Most poor people aren't criminals. People who think they are dumb. I agree, I grew up in a rough area of town. My family's apartment was right above one of the local gang's apartment where they murdered one of our neighbors. Despite that, I turned out all right, I think, I hope, I don't know. Just stop being poor. The vast majority of people who deal drugs do so out of necessity, and not because they're pieces of shit. You talk like there's such a thing as equality of opportunity, and everyone can simply choose their own future. That's a symptom of neoliberal bullshit you've been hearing for years. Everyone has the chance to become a millionaire. What? You live in the hood? Why don't you become a completely different person out of nowhere, be friends with people who are totally different than everyone around you, and study to be a doctor with your non-existing money? You can do it, if you work hard enough.